Good morning, everybody. Welcome to MarketStream.live. My name is Joseph Cusick with the Cusick Group, securities offered by MoneyBlock. I want to take a look at everything that's going on in Europe, and man, it is hot. Now, the U.S. FOMC came out. They gave their rate decision, and they're basically staying in line, did not raise rates. Commentary was not hawkish, not overly dovish, but growth is still on the table. And that is actually being reflected, but in a mixed nature globally through PMIs. We talked about this in the overnight action report in Asia, where we were taking a look at the PMIs that were coming out from China, actually a little bit lower than previous months. But boy, I'll tell you, you take a look at Europe, it is hot. Now, this is why you've heard a lot of the pundits that are on other shows talking about how Europe is really where the opportunity is. Why are they saying that? Because growth and the anticipation of growth for the foreseeable future in Europe, it's on the table. How do you measure that? You can use these purchasing managing indexes. Basically, that's looking at these purchasing managers for these big companies. They look at their supplies. They look at their demand, in other words, how much product they're moving. They look at employment. There's about 5 or 6 factors that are piled into this index. And starting with Germany, Germany came out with their services PMI, came out this morning at 55.4. To put that in context, last month was at 54.7. So you're seeing over a 1-point tick up to the upside. That means that they're anticipating growth. Anything north of 50 means that there is anticipation by these purchasing managers at these companies that they're going to have future growth. This is positive for Europe. And you can see right now the DAX is up almost 0.7%, up 87 points right now in the first couple hours of the session at 12,614. Some of the more notable names, though, that are also up on earnings are Adidas, up 2%. You're also seeing that autos and airlines are also up. You are seeing some challenge, though. Allianz, insurance company, down 2.2% right now early in the session. I want to keep an eye on that very closely, see how that, basically how the environment in the interest rate worlds is going to impact these insurance companies and if there are any geopolitical shifts. But we'll get into that in just a second. Taking a look at the UK, speaking of geopolitical issues, as a matter of fact, you're starting to see headlines. Prime Minister Theresa May, she's coming out and she is pretty ticked off at a lot of EU politicians. Some Eurozone politicians seem to be meddling in not only the upcoming elections that will be triggered in the UK. Parliament passed a bill. They're going to actually have new elections. But also she feels like they're meddling in the Brexit negotiations. So there's a little bit of political tension right now between Theresa May and EU politicians, Eurozone politicians. We'll see how that plays out. But taking a look at their PMI, it came out at 55.8. The previous month, it was at 54.7. So again, you're starting to see that there is a heightened anticipation of economic growth going forward in the UK. Now, what we did see is big bank after earnings, HSBC, moving to the upside. See some positive earnings that are coming out there. That has the financial sector in general up in the UK. We're going to keep an eye on that, see if that continues to the upside. Finally, taking a look at France. Now, of course, everybody knows the French elections are going to occur this weekend. We have Macron and Le Pen. Macron, the centrist, Le Pen, the right-wing nationalist. At this current level, we see the polls running Macron up almost 20%, but we all know how polls are. This is going to be a highly anticipated, watched event. But with that being said, you can see that right now the French CAC up almost 1%, at up 0.9%, up 48 points at 53.49. Ever since last week when Macron won, and it wasn't like a Fillon Le Pen or another one of the candidates, we basically saw that the global markets in general took a sigh of relief and said, well, we feel really good that the centrist candidate is going to win. The markets have been trading as such, and you see that the French markets are actually challenging their highs. And you see this gap here. This is what I'm going to watch. Going into that election, there was a lot of enthusiasm. Gap up, everything's fine. Obviously, the bulls are in control here, but when I take a look at their PMI, it's telling me that not only do the bulls think that the markets are going to be doing well in France, but so do the purchasing managers. The services PMI in France came out at 56.2. Previous month was at 52.9. So you see a lot of enthusiasm about potential growth from the PMIs that are coming not only out of France, but Europe in general. One thing that's notable is that you're starting to see growth names continue to move to the upside. That's interesting, especially since we saw a lower than expected PMI out of China. But of course, Japan was closed. We'll see if Japan trading overnight tonight will get a little bit of a boost. And metal names. Watch Mattel on the open here in the States, but also watch it trading over in France. It's down today. Let's see if metal names start to get a little pressure, since now really all we're talking about is no longer infrastructure plays, but tax reform and healthcare. All right, folks, that's it right now for what's on the open in Europe. We've taken a look at all that. Join me at 9:30 Eastern Time. I'm going to be talking about everything that's happened in the U.S. markets. We got some action. Join me. See you then.